at the moment at three major cities in Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane. And the aim is to get you quite active as a community, and you'll get events going on every month. The minimum is every 3 months, and you'll get the ideal is every month. There will be more notifications about this. Anna, would you like to share about the event? Anna is our event committee.
Yeah, so me along with David and Lisa are part of the event committee, and we're trying to get more speakers lined up for future events so that we can come to as Anna mentioned. So we have a sign-up sheet right behind David. It's a little, right there. So if you're interested in presenting, or you have an idea for a topic that you want to see, we'd love to have your ideas, or if you want to find out one of your colleagues to present, please write the name down and a topic. And so in September, we're trying to organize a daylighting event. So if you or someone in your office has some interesting daylighting work that they've done recently, please guide them up or let us know.
Would also like to say thank you to anyone who host the event and provide us with the food for the event. And so basically, maybe I need also to mention about IBPSA. I'm not very sure that everyone's familiar with IBPSA. So this is basically an affiliate of the World IBPSA. Our IBPSA is IBPSA Australasia. And so our coverage is Australia, New Zealand, also members from Indonesia, Togo, and Malaysia. And the president at the moment is IBPSA. We have Nikki as the vice president on the marketing and the market care. And we have Fishy Thomas as the and there will be new board meeting soon. Everyone who would like to join in, be part of the board and the organizer, welcome and join the board meeting schedule. So another thing is we have this event for 2 key points under the sustainable development in IBPSA. So it's already in a forum. So just log in to the website, to your CPD portal, select the thermal comfort and energy efficiency, and then add the new request. You have to fetch either your Eventbrite confirmation. So let's start with the topic. So our topic is on thermal comfort and efficiency. This has been something that we would like to discuss a bit more whenever there is some discussion about thermal comfort, because we were going to be energy efficient. There will be a electricity how to do it or not, or whether with our thoughts about awareness about climate change, we actually have to compromise one of them, or can we actually have some other alternatives to make it more efficient, whether we want to use the active system or if we can go to hybrid or system. So we are really delighted to have these three speakers from Access, Matan, and Dennis. And we'll talk about how the book has been evident in neighbor setting. So without further ado, I'll introduce Access. So Access is basically my guru. He requirement instead of hanging around the 3 months, it has to be 20 to 30 and reduced. That's his retirement time.
Yeah, Tom's going to be talking about Laura's comfortable experience, and we'll find out in a minute, Laura, just a bit of intrigue on that. So, just the basic revision, if you like, just to get everybody at the end of the day, so we're on the same page. In terms of the comfort, we know that thermal comfort is variations of temperature radiance, air velocity, humidity, together with air particulates, together with lighting and noise and all that. And I'm pleased to see that you're going to have your next seminar on lighting. This is excellent. In terms of our balance of the human body, we have exchanges of heat transfer in all ways, including the heat transfer, say, wet and dry, in terms of respiration, evaporation, losses, convection, all that sort of thing. All that leads to something that starts to define what is thermal comfort. And if you look at the balance is that the thermal comfort is attained when total heat produced by metabolism equals the heat lost from the body for a given level of clothing. Okay. So we are all either in a thermal balance or some of it warm, some of it cold, and all that. And that's what really defines thermal comfort. If you then look at how can that be quantified, and at the end of the session you'll be asked to repeat that. There is and the person who developed this obviously has thought it through to say what are these factors and how are can they be into one unit, just like the degrees Celsius or percentage RH or humidity and all that. The predicted mean vote came about as a result of that, whereby you get a one figure. Now, obviously, that figure is related to all of these factors, plus some more, and I'm going to be talking about those more ones in terms of particularly that part. So, again, this will be a secondary question at the end of the evening, so let's just remember this formula. The 6 factors are humidity, air velocity, air temperature, radiant temperature, metabolic heat, and clothing insulation. And as we all know, that if you, and you can measure the predicted mean vote from 0 being neutral, -1, -2, -3 being very cold, or you can go up to slightly warm or hot. And that has been the scale, the 7-point scale as it's called, in terms of defining thermal comfort. Now, in terms of the relationship, again, we know that there is a relationship in terms of the predicted mean vote and percentage of people dissatisfied. So in this group, if you say, okay, TMC is 0, then hopefully everybody in this room is happy in terms of the thermal comfort. That is the best solution. If you were to raise the temperature to 40 degrees in this room, then it would be 100% virtually who will be dissatisfied. So then you probably be a real 3, 4, and things like that. So that's why it's parabolic, that 0 is where you are getting the optimum comfort level and minimum number of people dissatisfied. Whereas if you either side, you will start to get the percentage of people dissatisfied increasing. Now, the Green Valley Council and the Green Star give points for this. If your PMV is between minus 0.5 and plus 0.5, you get 2 points. If it is between minus 1 and plus 1, you get 1 point. Now, if you say, okay, it is plus 1, but you're already saying about 26 or 27% of the people will not be happy. But that's the best you can do. Okay. So in other words, while it's theoretical to a certain extent, there is enough evidence to say that yes, there's some relationship. Now, this is what we're going to be talking about to say, okay, what is that relationship and what are the artificial environments? Then later Martin will be talking about what are some of the natural environments that can make it more comfortable. And comfortable in that way is also related, as I mentioned earlier, related to your particular, your indoor air quality as well. So healthy living and healthier lifestyle is all related back to some form of an analysis to say, okay, this is one measure, but we also want to measure what the CO2 levels are, what the particular levels are, and things like that. And that all then will define how you feel that you feel comfortable or not. In terms of in terms of the metabolic rate, if you lie down, 0.8, jogging 8, sitting down is now I think like 1 or 1.1 sort of thing with normal office fasting. Tennis is like 4. So again, this has been measured. This has been measured in terms of the actual heat output and the metabolic rate itself. So that is virtually something that we all know now. And in our calculations for PMV, generally for office spaces, particularly we take around 1 or 1.1. So clothing becomes the other analysis. How do you work out your clothing? So if you've got each item, you can add them up, and you can get a value for your clothing. Now, obviously, when you're doing an analysis in an office, it's very hard to sort of say, okay, what is the general clothing level? You can have summer and winter general, and that's what we've been talking about today. What are some of those values that you can take as your average clothing value? I know of one particular research student who actually carried out an analysis of clothing to clothing. He didn't go around sort of checking everything, but he used some of the security people to give them an idea of whether he was wearing sweaters, jackets, and all that, particularly when the temperature was very cold outside. So he got an idea of saying, the security people would sort of judge, say, yeah, insurance the people are wearing. They would say, okay, 60 or 70% were wearing that, but the outside temperature was whatever sort of thing. It's a little bit of an analysis to say, can clothing be, worked out for a PMV? But then, how do you work out that is 0.11 and that is 0.25? This is where okay, this is where Laura comes. So Laura is a fellow American at the University of Sydney. I was about 2 years that she did there. And what we didn't know, my phone was Laura. She came in plastic, or rest of it plastic, and you know the story of our apartment, who came in those plastic, and there's a story behind that. So, the year we decided the last state, we'll call the law. And it's a very, I don't say it, but actually she is better. She's quite expensive in terms of, that's why it's only one of its kind at this stage in Australia for thermal comfort. There can be mannequins, and there are mannequins used for other analyses, but for thermal comfort, might be the first one, it's not the only one at the moment. And you get 22 segments in terms of being able to analyze that. Again, that has played an important part in the research that we've carried out. So if you there you are. If you carry out the analysis of the clothing, so what you start off with is nothing on, and then you dress her up with this particular thing. And if you carry out the S-55 analysis of the socks and skirt and all that, you will get to 0.35. The actual figure was 0.36. So it's even a good way of actually getting the analysis done. You can be at the time. Certainly that's what we did for the rest of it, to just work out that, okay, something that hadn't done, and try to find out what had been done in terms of flow, and say, what's the flow values of the flow, because if you go into the S-55, there may not be, as Lisa said, China told will be this, or that the light wool and silk and embroidered wool and all that. So we did a bit of an analysis to work out what difference it made in terms of these different shows. And this was just one part of the main research, but since the opportunity was there, and since we were getting a lot of data and the ability to carry this out, we have carried them out. What I'm going to talk about is the different artificial environments, namely variable air volume in terms of the air conditioning system, where the air quality varies in response to a demand. So right now, if there's this number of people, the VAV system will work out and use more air. So it is a relationship where the thermostat will say, yeah, if it's not being maintained, increase the volume. But the same token, there are very few people, the thermostat will say, well, we're satisfied or we're actually getting lower, so shut down some of the air or throttle down the air, hence the name variable volume. Still beams, I think everybody is now quite familiar with it. Two types, active and passive. Passive is where you don't have a fan, it's just relying on a cold surface. It's a cold surface, like say, instead of a projector. You will get a much of convection, and that's how you get steam cooling within a zone by having the cold surface. Or active is where you will have your fresh air or the amount of air coming through, and that induces the return air, and you get the cooler air coming out of the side. With the passive one, you will still need to have conditioned fresh air, because obviously you need to provide the ventilation flows. You need to provide the 7.5 per person in terms of meeting the code requirements. Underflow air distribution is also becoming a bit more sort of prevalent now. There's practical buildings that now I know have been used or started to be used, and they've got very large buildings in Melbourne, for example, 40-story building that has got a same system. And the analysis that has been carried out is to look at these systems and say, okay, what's the comfort level? We can work out, and this is say we have actually now worked out energy efficiency as well, but that's a separate topic. But in terms of thermal comfort this is what this experiment has been about. So the experiment methodology involved field studies and a thermal modeling exercise which we have just completed, which shows the efficiencies and all that sort of thing. But in terms of the IBQ lab, the comfort analysis, that has been the main part of the research, where we've carried out experiments using thermal management as well as experiments using human subjects. So in terms of the process that we've used is basically in this lab, and for those who are not familiar, the chambers, so chamber 1 and chamber 2. Chamber 1 has got a UFAD system and a VAV system. Chamber 2 is the chill beam system. And hence, we can use this to be able to work out what the heat exchanges are, both for humans, using human subjects, and using LoRa as a subject. So we made sure, because as we've been talking about the air quantities, the air velocities, and all that is what we have. Before we started the experiment, we made sure that the commissioning was redone to say that yes, all the air was in the right proportions and everything else. The methodology that we followed was basically, for the people involved, was we had 30 subjects. And these are people from, I would say, all walks of life except for business consultants or contractors who are working in the commission. So we felt that they may have five opinions. They like one particular system, they know very quickly what this is about, and they'll say, oh yeah, that is better, or this is this or that. So we had people who generally spend a lot of time in commission space. So accountants, anybody primarily in the accounting or financial field. There are people from A&P, people from people from the council, the public council, and say quite a few industry people who were paid a little bit of money to come and spend the whole day to give us feedback in terms of some questions that we have. So the process was they would spend time in chamber 1, then the chamber 2, and they wouldn't know what system was on. This is just our way of saying, okay, we'll have VAV first, then temperature beams, then UFAD, and then VAV again. So that, and then in the afternoon, we would do it the other way around, start off with the UFAD, then VAV, then VAV, and UFAD. So we rotated using a random system, randomized system, I should say, to be able to do this analysis. LoRa was subject in subsequent, so we had people, normally we had 3 people per day, and they would be working this one, and then they would go to the next chamber, they would come back to this chamber, etc., after spending time. And for LoRa, it wasn't quite easy, because Capsule, let's say, well, okay, go to the next. So we had to wheel her in and out and take all this gear with her so that it is the same load in both the things and to make sure that that particular computer was energized all the time, because we shut it off to lose the data. So that's why it was quite tricky, but we managed to do that. So there was a request to bring Laura here today. That she committed otherwise. At the Vice Chancellor was coming to the university today from around then, so I think he brought a priority to meeting her today. But for those who are interested, still at the uni, you can organize from myself, and we'd be happy to introduce you to her. These are some of the techniques that were used for assessing and getting the feedback, like the thermal sensation on the head, we had around the feet, and all that sort of thing. Plus, we had the room thermal preference to say which room, without saying obviously the system, but it was basically a different system every time. So which room would they prefer? Those questions were asked at the appropriate time. So that both in terms of, obviously Laura was asked the question, but in terms of the people, we asked that question. So in terms of other parameters, physical measurements were taken on all the velocities, temperatures at the different heights, and all that sort of thing. And then we also had somebody taking the actual body temperatures of the people who came in. Because the interesting thing was that we wanted to compare that with the figures that we got from Laura. So there's a reading that you can get, which is T and Q, that will tell you exactly what the different temperatures are. And as you will see, where there's clothing, and where there isn't clothing, the temperatures will vary. So we did it for the two flow values, 0.36, and the other one was for 0.56, which was basically with the legs covered. And again, it made a bit of a difference, as you will see in those results. That essentially, we were also interested in, just like we were interested in the people, to take the temperatures of the forehead and the back of the leg. In a similar manner, we took the temperatures for what we saw over here, the foreleg versus what was at the head. And that temperature difference was what was telling us what was happening with each of these systems. And we compared that. So from Laura's perspective, we found that one system was showing, particularly in this situation, you will see that the PQ at the crown and at the foreleg is the difference. And you can see the difference is very little over here versus compared to these two. And that, in some ways, is reflected in the actual figures or actual values that we got from the 30 subjects after the experiments that were done with the human people. So if you look at the results, the passive chill beads were showing at 62% versus 38% when compared to VAV, and the chill beads were showing 63% versus 37% when compared to UFAD. This was line ball between the two over here from a comfort point of view. So, conclusion. We did some logistic regression analysis to show again what were the areas that were, and we found that the head minus ankle was the contributing factor. And this is being substantiated, if you like, with Laura's experiment. So that both of them show that there is a difference, and in some ways, not in some ways, but that is the conclusion that the chill beam is offering a higher comfort level when compared to both VAV and UFAD. And it's almost confirming the adage that warm feet and cool head provide better comfort. So warm feet, we all know that when you wake in the morning and are very cold, put on your socks and things like that. So warm feet definitely, and cooler head still means that particularly will provide that both in terms of slightly cooler, but it doesn't get cool enough to the leg. And that probably is one of the conclusions to say, or an explanation to say that in our findings, that the chill beams were done in more time. Question? To have a bit more discussion time at the end, particularly after we also discussed some of the national ventilation aspects and the energy efficiency. But if there are any burning questions, I'll be happy to answer. Yes.
I don't quite understand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that one.
Okay. What was shown over here is that these are the preferences that were provided in terms of when we asked the question, which room did they prefer? So this was an analysis that we carried out over the 10 days with the 30 subjects, and each one was asked twice per system, if you like, or per room, both in the morning and in the afternoon. There's a lot of data collected, and this is the result. After all that, to show that the preference indicated by people was 62% compared to 38% when they say, well, we actually like this environment, and they didn't know what this was. So this is after the statistical analysis done. I apologize for the dollar sign.
I think I.
Yes. Okay. Yes. For the children one, that was there the last thing that was during the airflow, the DAB manner one of those. Sorry, when you say learning assistance, well, so like an active children that go out and we ducked into it, so yeah, we carried out a little bit of an analysis of the active system as well, but the issue was active systems generally are on the perimeter, especially and majority of the indoor or the interior zone is not affected as much by the perimeter than the interior zone, but passives are affected by the external factors. So the question was, okay, we can do an analysis of active beams, but what orientation? And it started to become that, okay, the results will be so much dependent on orientation, where the interior will be virtually constant, whether it's over here or whether it's Adelaide or whether it's anywhere else. So the interior has a more uniform environment, and effective beams in that way will have the same interaction compared to the active chill beam. But in terms of active chill beam, the results that we got were not that different, except that they were closer to it. The percentage wasn't as much as that, so a bit closer to the DAB, because that active chill beams with the air system producing and supplying is acting quite a lot as an air system, whereas passive is acting more as a convective side, a bit of radiation. Yeah. Yes, sir. What was the fires for example, the graph where you had the temperature, the angle was quite cold? Yeah. We made sure that it didn't go below the. And actually, just backtracking a little bit, the modeling exercise we just completed for the energy analysis is showing a lot of benefits for you in AD as a result of that. So the energy efficiency of the AD is quite good. What that takes. Okay. Right. We'll have a bit more discussion after that. Thank you so much.
ventilation comfort, which was part of the and it's a part of the paper that has been published in the journal paper. So it's a part of the journal paper, and the sponsors are my supervisors and supervisors, the solution here at the University of Sydney, and the solution family and the groundwork on my house. The study has been developed and conducted and so the topic is optimization of base cover cooling performance in Australia. The real-time study of indoor air and thermal comfort. First, let's start with an introduction to following cover. That's what we cover. Bin cover is the vernacular architectural feature that has been used in traditional architecture since 1300 BC in Persian countries. It's the cover sitting on top of the building. It has openings that catch the wind and introduce the wind into interior places. Modern application of these covers have been used frequently in UK and US. For example, in Montfort University in UK and Nottingham University in UK. Also, experimental building, which is called Winchester House in Stanford University. They have this house to do all the measurements, design temperature, which can be generated under cover. But today it's not in Australia. So my research was about simulation and modeling for testing the performance of the cover in Australia. All right, I'm going to say. So this is the problem statement. Contemporary medium density regenerated air and solution Android around the corridor, just some people from windows, or even if they want to, they can, because these are most of the people. And this makes them heavily dependent on using air conditioning, which generates more greenhouse gas emissions and air. Okay, the objective of this research was to optimize the ventilation performance of the wind cover in the contemporary Sydney climate context, to quantify the thermal comfort condition of the wind cover in Australian and medium long context, and to predict the potential energy savings of using it. So first, to do this study, we have to choose the building for the study. And the way that we choose the building, so we had 4 different research methods, which was being funnel experiment. We made a model with the model in the funnel, and we on the experiment measure the pressure and indoor airspeed. Then it was case study that is related to indoor airspeed on the design context for summer season. And the third one was indoor thermal comfort simulation that we used the results from second phase for simulate the thermal comfort conditions, and the fourth phase was energy saving calculation. So to use the building model, I researched CSIRO research. In 2013, CSIRO and NCAR, they conducted a research to publish a framework for adaptation of Australian households to space, and they published 5 different departments that would be forecast to increase in popularity in Australia. For this research, we choose one of those departments that they published. This is the building, so it's 4
it's an apartment for a story apartment, 2 units. Each unit has 2 stories. So this building design belongs to this. We just added the wind tower on top of that to see how does it work. And first, we deconstruct the model and put the 99 pressure tap over the platform and opening of the wind tower and the pressure tube. Then we reassemble the model again to be ready to begin the wind tunnel. This is the wind tunnel CPT as turntable to make us able to do the experiment on in this direction. And it was the bond related wind tunnel, which generates air and roughness. Those features here are the similar air and roughness. And we had the experiment on 3 scenarios. The first scenario, scenario A, is the isolated building. Scenario B was a building located in the corner of the neighborhood. And scenario C was building embedded in the impact of neighborhood on the situation. First, I did a parametric study to optimize the wind power geometry to calculate the size of the tower, the length of the tower, the width, and also the length and the length of the tower. So I did all of this parametric study to catch the optimized design, and then the optimized design, we put the model in the wind tunnel and we measure the pressure over the surface of the wind tower opening and window opening. So based on the pair thermodynamic rules and Bernoulli equation, the higher the pressure coefficient difference over the opening of the window, the more the indoor air movement. So here the blue graph shows the pressure coefficient difference between inlet opening and outlet, between the opening of the wind tower and window opening of the building. And the red one shows the pressure coefficient difference between 2 cut window buildings, which to compare the cut ventilation with the wind tower ventilation. And we did the experiment on the same instruction. Then with 8 number of equations, we can convert the pressure for air. This graph shows for air speed on the 2 ventilation system. The blue one is wind power ventilation and the blue one is gas window ventilation. Under ventilation. They had this result. They had increased indoor air. Second phase was about thermal comfort. We always say about thermal comfort as parameter for our environmental parameters for our personal. So we can use pressure talk about it. Otherwise, somebody trades the talk about it. And both environmental parameters are air temperature, mean radiant temperature, and indoor air speed and humidity. So we had 2 different scenarios. One scenario was indoor air speed under power ventilation. Other one was indoor air speed under flat window ventilation. And then we did the thermal comfort. This is the state that Dora came story. So we simulated 2 environmental conditions. One was under wind power ventilation, and another one was under window ventilation. Then Dora panel, and then like a thermodynamic, and the standing moment called summer choking was standing 2 chambers under ventilation and telling us about how many hours is possible. And we compare these hours with each other. So I'm calling IBPSA, which is the standard SDG, thermal comfort index. This is what literally Dora does. Dora is a thermal management calculates all of combine all of these parameters and tell us one number. That number is so we had this easiest for 6 months under wind power and under window ventilation. Then we had delta stuff, which in general for the summer time we had average 3.2 degrees decrease in thermal comfort in indoor air temperature, but in SE temperature, not in air temperature. And then we had this modern scientific stuff, which was 4,004 degree hour for this one atmosphere, which is the thermal comfort then generated by increased indoor air speed under this pressure. So these are the results of the first scenario that are connected. The corner scenario and the medicine scenario had better results compared with the indoor ventilation. And the next stage was about energy saving calculation. So I use those 3 hours into the energy saving calculation and model, and I got 3.3 to 1 hour per minute per year energy consumption reduction, and 1,100 per minute per year for carbon emission reduction, and also for electricity cost. You know that these are based on solar difference. I use the average one, which was $70 trillion. And it is just for 1 unit, 1 year. Just imagine the confidence of compounded business for 30 years. It wants the off confidence. These are the results of my research regarding information from confidence. There's time about knowing and actually saying, okay, we know about the research and the impact of the research, but how we can apply research in practice. And so, you know, if there's a possibility to bring this research seriously in practice. And so we talked about that it's good to that we speak about some sample of like industrial products and industry players, which provide ventilation systems. Renson is a company that's part of Belgium. They produce ventilation systems in 3 categories. One is natural ventilation, which is their indoor vent. Another one is mechanical ventilation, and the third one is climate ventilation, combination of natural ventilation and climate. This diagram here shows health part. So in health part, it supplies air naturally with window vents and movers, and it exhausts mechanically. This is the health part. This is the health part. The health part has 8, 9, or 11 walls. Each wall goes to each bedroom, and each bedroom has its control panel, which shows CO2 levels, humidity, and odor. And this is a control demand system, which means that based on the demand source, if you are not in the bedroom and all of you are sitting in the sitting room, so based on the level of the CO2 and odor, you understand that this is not the bedroom. But note that in the living room, based on the CO2 level and odor, it knows that it needs to continue ventilation. It also has like some modes, like empty house mode, that then you're traveling and so I video presentation which explains the concept for ventilation mode.
Today, we insulate our homes better than ever before. And that's a good thing. We save a The strict insulation standards lead to a better thermal comfort. But if you only focus on thermal comfort, then the indoor air remains trapped in the house. This results in poorer indoor air quality through all kinds of pollutants. Invisible polluted air is caused by excess carbon dioxide or CO2. Water vapor, H2O, and through all sorts of chemicals coming from furniture, candles, paint, or detergents. The effect of water vapor is condensation, which can lead to all kinds of pathogenic fungi. The effects of CO2 and chemicals are headache, concentration problems, fatigue, or worse health problems. Opening a window to ventilate the house is uncontrolled ventilation. The indoor air quality will only improve locally, but the positive effect is limited and is only temporary. What we really need is controlled ventilation. Fresh air is supplied through dry rooms such as the living room and bedroom, and the polluted air is extracted through wet rooms such as the bathroom and kitchen. This will ensure that polluted air is, as it were, flushed from the home. The ventilation systems of Renton take it a step further. Fresh air is naturally provided through window vents, and the central extraction unit is equipped with intelligent, invisible sensors that continuously monitor the amount of moisture, CO2, and other chemical substances, and adjust the ventilation level to ensure good indoor air quality. This system will ensure polluted air is extracted when and where it is required. For example, the ventilation system will automatically go to a higher level in the bathroom when someone takes a shower, or in the kitchen when the breakfast is being cooked. Alternatively, it will go to a lower setting if nobody is at home. Increase the level of ventilation when cooking dinner, and also adjust the ventilation level at night to provide adequate ventilation to enjoy a good night's sleep, and avoid the musty, polluted air in the morning. Thanks to this intelligent and energy-efficient ventilation system of Renton, we can rely in all circumstances on a healthy and comfortable indoor air climate. Ventilating with Renton, a good idea.
So as you can see, there are different technologies to provide healthy environment and some comfort and also energy saving. So in this stage, we will
Thank you, Vincent. I hope everyone is good. We'll go next to.
Sometimes it just gets unbearably hot in our house, making it uncomfortable, constantly cool. The typical Australian house has around 220 tonnes of mass. During hot days, this acts like a giant sponge, soaking up heat and storing it in the walls and floors of your home. As external temperatures drop, this heat radiates back into your home, making it hot and stuffy. Air conditioners help cool the air, but are expensive to run. They have to constantly battle the heat radiating from the walls to keep you comfortable. The heat is often felt most in your bedrooms, making for an uncomfortable night's sleep. Windows don't provide much relief as cooler outside air.
We're going to go next to Jenny's presentation. I don't think I have to say much about Dennis. Everyone knows Dennis. He's the head of technical team in Sydney. Now the head of technical standards in Neighbours, and Neighbours is of the NSW Environment and Heritage. So without further ado, here's Dennis.
about thermal comfort and energy efficiency. As part of the NABERS program, we have a huge amount of data at our disposal for looking at buildings across Australia nationwide for both indoor environment quality and for energy efficiency. So today I'm going to be exploring some of that in a little bit of detail. I'm not going to go into anywhere near as much detail as what Ashak and Masan have done in their presentation. So please bear with me as we explore more the fundamentals of energy efficiency and thermal comfort rather than getting to the nitty-gritty details. And I promise there won't be any equation tests at the end of it. You'll see some of the... So one of the things I'm going to explore is why, I'm going to go back to right at the fundamentals, and why do we build buildings? Why do we build buildings? It might seem like a really silly question, but I think it really comes down to the heart of why energy efficiency and why indoor environment are important. The reason we build buildings is to shelter us, protect us from the elements, and to provide us with some comfort. So that's what we'll be exploring a little bit more in this talk today. If you thought we build buildings because they make us lots of money, then this presentation will be very, very, very relevant to you. So energy efficiency. The next part, energy efficiency. What is energy efficiency? I know there are a couple of energy efficiency professionals in the room, but does someone want to give me what they think energy efficiency definition is? No? How about using less energy? Does that sound about right? That's right, yeah, I'm glad you said that. Using less energy is only half of the equation. What we need to be able to do is have services that are fit for purpose. So we need to be able to deliver our services effectively before we can even consider the efficiency part of the equation. If we're just looking entirely at the energy use and not worrying about the services, that's not efficiency. That's just reducing your energy use. So I'm sure that you guys get that. So what we want to be doing for delivering efficiency is making sure that we're delivering your services, but using the minimal amount of energy to do so. At NABERS, we've been around for 20 years. We've been measuring building energy efficiency, and the journey that our commercial office buildings have been taking for a little while. So on our first slide, you can see the journey that our commercial buildings have taken over the last number of years. So what you can see in this chart is at the top, the green ones, they're our high-performing buildings. They're 5, 5.5 star. You can see those numbers are increasing over time. Well, at the bottom, both in the black and the orange and the dark blues, they're decreasing. And what that general trend is showing us is that buildings are improving their energy efficiency over time. And that's a great thing. We're having a positive environmental impact. And it's not just NABERS that's doing this. NABERS is a way of being able to benchmark and measure performance so that buildings can understand where they are in their journey, how much further they have to go, and also be able to set targets for where they are going to be able to further improve and measure that. Some of the key aspects of why NABERS has been successful is that we use real performance data. Before I go into that, who are you familiar with NABERS? See a couple of the heads in the room. Right, I won't go into what NABERS is all about. We can have more time for questions at the end. All right. So yeah, basically we use real data and we benchmark to measure the actual efficiency of the building, so we normalize the our area. So what we're doing is we're measuring the actual efficiency of the building rather than its features. It's not just the improvement in the star rating at the time, but by the 10th rating, on average, for all of the buildings that participate in NABERS, we're seeing a 35% energy drop. And that's a fantastic achievement that buildings have been making in the energy efficiency space. The next big question on your mind is, how is that impacting on the indoor environment of the occupants of those buildings? We know that we spend 90% of our time indoors, and that 90% of the building's cost is for occupants. So while we're improving that energy efficiency, is it truly efficiency of what we're doing? Or are we compromising the indoor environment for the purposes of energy use? So I've done some data analysis. I have 261 data points. I'm not going to show you every single one individually. For buildings that have had both NABERS indoor environment rating and both an energy efficiency rating, so that we can understand the correlation between them. Indoor environment. Everybody familiar with what we do with our indoor environment rating? Yeah? Not quite? We look at the 5 aspects of indoor environment, and they tie very closely with what Ashak presented to earlier. So thermal comfort, air quality, lighting, acoustics, and office layout. And the thermal comfort, we measure that very similar to the ASHRAE standard using temperature, mean radiant temperature, airspeed, and humidity. Yeah, just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? And the thermal comfort and the air quality, they're the ones that have a higher impact on occupant comfort, so weighted higher within our rating system. So the results are skewed toward or weighted towards the thermal comfort and air quality. So looking at that data, here are the results. The bigger the blob, the more data points there are sitting under that. So there are a couple of observations that you can make up very early on. And the first thing I would like to point out is that between the 2.5 and 3 star band, that average performance for indoor environment, which is the y-axis is indoor environment and x-axis is energy rating. So the very first thing to notice is a lot of the buildings conducting indoor environment ratings are sitting above average. And that's great news for occupants of buildings because it means that our buildings are reasonably good. They're providing fairly healthy spaces that are conducive towards productivity. If I draw a line straight up, so I correlate 1 star indoor environment, 1 star energy efficiency, 5 star, 5 star, etc., so that we can get an idea of where buildings are in terms of energy efficiency and indoor environment quality. What we can see is that big blue blob is clustered very nicely around on that line, and that tells us that there's a reasonably good correlation between energy efficiency of buildings and the indoor environment. And that makes quite a bit of sense for those of you who do building simulation. Some of the very easy wins you have in buildings are in the HVAC space. 65% of energy used within a building is for indoor environment conditions. And most of that is ventilation, heating and cooling. I'm sure that you know that already. And some of the easy wins that we have are for buildings with energy is making sure you're not overcooling spaces, making sure you're not overheating spaces, making sure your thermal zones aren't fighting with each other. You fix those, you improve your energy efficiency. That also has the impact of making a more comfortable indoor environment. Similarly, with fan energy. Fans in the initial fit out of a building, it all air balances nicely as tenants move in and out. They have to change, they move walls, they put in meeting rooms, they change office layouts. Very often the air balancing isn't always addressed in the tenant fit out because the air balancing is often based building responsibility, based building loading. And so we see that imbalance over time. Easy win for energy efficiency. Who do that balancing? Normalize your fan pressures, put VSDs on them, make them run only when they need to. That has the added impact of producing a better indoor environment quality for the occupants. So that relationship that we're seeing here of good indoor environment and great energy efficiency, it makes sense. So it's not counterintuitive. The data does present that the two aren't mutually exclusive. Having good energy efficiency and good indoor environment, they go hand in hand. The next observation is in this area here, in the top left. And what we're seeing is that these buildings are producing either an average or a higher than average, in this case, higher than average indoor environment quality, according to our benchmark buildings, at a lower energy efficiency. So what that tells us is these buildings are performing very well internally, but they're using much more energy than buildings that are providing an equivalent level of service higher up the scale. So we can immediately see that these buildings, their energy performance is not higher because they're providing more services. Their energy performance is higher because they are more efficient, which relates back to our star rating scale, which tells us what we knew already, which is low rating gives us poor energy efficiency and a high rating gives us a high energy efficiency. final observation. We have a couple of outliers in this data down right at the bottom here, where we're seeing reasonably high energy ratings, but lower than average or poor indoor environment quality ratings. Now, this isn't to say that the indoor environment is absolutely awful in these spaces. It's just that in comparison to their benchmark and their peers, their indoor environment quality they're producing is poorer. So in cases like this, we are seeing that the buildings may not be truly energy efficient. There's something else going on there. They're using less energy, but they're not providing the same level of services as their peers who are providing that level of service. And to me, that shows the value of having both a metric to measure energy efficiency and to measure indoor environment, to be able to say, yes, we're doing things for energy efficiency. But we're keeping in mind that what we're doing with this building is delivering core services. We want to make people comfortable. We want people to be productive in this space, and that's what we're striving towards. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Anyone would like to have a question for Dennis?
This is not a name and shame session. Because there are different metrics that like great. Have you outlined these like master metrics or is it a general issue?
It would be a general issue with the building. The way it's weighted is the base building is 40% thermal comfort, 40% air quality, and the remaining is acoustics. So being really poor in just one of those areas would not drop you to 0 star. It would be something across a number of areas. So it could be the I didn't delve into the details of what brought them down to that level, but it would be a number of things. It wouldn't just be they had the office is quite loud and therefore it's nothing new.
It's across Australia or
all these buildings they're across Australia. There's even a couple in Darwin on that chart. So
just wondering whether you've done a separate one for ACT.
I can do a separate one for ACT if you're interested.
Well, very interesting. The anecdotal evidence is good energy efficiency, but not very good ideas.
We have quite a few, the cross-section of buildings in the ACT is quite high, so I can definitely do that one for you. My concern about doing it just for the ACT is the statistical significance of that data set may not be huge, but I can definitely run those numbers for you.
And the governing factor has been that because, majority are obviously government tenancies, and they will not go into less than 4.5 stars, so some facility managers are not being as honest as they should be. And that has, anecdotal, actually it's not quite anecdotal, it's actually proven in a few instances where they've taken steps that they should not be taking, like turning off the sewer at 4:30. By the time the indoor comfort is complained about, it's time to go home. So, and then in fact that has been reported in a few of those tenancies. So it's a question of, I guess, whether that comes up in any of such analysis, or is that because the IQ is at a given point in time rather than dynamic, whereas obviously energy efficiency is throughout the year in terms of what the energy figures. So I'm just looking at the data.
One of the things that we do there is we look at the annual temperature across the entire year. So we take 12 months of temperature data, eliminating weekends, public holidays, and times where people aren't in the office. And temperature readings at least every hour. Very often for the BMSs, we find that the data is every 15 minutes, so we get very granular data. And for BMS points across each of the sample floors to match what we are sampling in the spot measurements. So we're getting a really good temperature profile across the year, both for summer and winter, for compliant and non-compliant. Because we're only taking temperature data, we do assume humidity, air metabolic rate, clothing factor, etc. But it does give a strong indication of whether it's sitting in or outside of that temperature band.
And with the prevalence of dynamic measurements these days, where you can just feel to everything dynamically.
You're not talking about Sandra, are you, actually?
No, actually now there are lots of competition things. It could be any one of those. But what I'm interested in, and I hope it's a future thing that can be carried out, is to compare the dynamic versus the one period type situation, so that there is some correlation to say, okay, throughout the year, yes, there are periods when it is lower, but on average, it matches absolutely with your running view. That's what I hope that would be the result.
I'm actually really excited about the disruption being caused by the online and the availability of them and the cost of them to have these sensors in across the space so that we can gather that data and be able to do that proper 12-month, 365-day performance verification of a lot of the elements, more than just spot measurements of certain things. So, yeah, I'm really excited to the future.
Well, I work with it.
This isn't a plain question. We didn't pre-arrange
Exactly. The data in the future environment, because there's a lot more data about tree style, kind of shows you that if you buy a sample, you can do better and you can do better. But what I find really interesting about this story, it doesn't prove that energy efficiency to get and one drives the other. But what it kind of shows is that you can get really good energy efficiency and really good services at the same time. Why do you think what's happening to those things that are driving about the
a little bit of what I said earlier around your optimization strategies and your controls in being able to looking at improving your energy efficiency, like making sure there's no overcooling, no overheating, your air balancing is done right. Some of those are really easy in reduce the energy use and the loading on your heating and cooling systems, but they also improve the comfort of the individuals in the space because you don't have someone sitting across one side really hot and someone sitting the other side really cold. Anyone sat in a building like that? I've worked in several buildings. So, yeah, and that's one of the main reasons I think that we are seeing that buildings that do have a good energy performance can also provide really good environment qualities. You got any other thoughts and insight?
I might add to that one of the areas that we've been looking at is the level of the knowledge gap that has existed between designers and operators. It is now narrowing a little. It's a good sign, and perhaps that's also contributing. So if you look at a good manager who will manage the energy, will no doubt manage the indoor air quality as well. So it's a level of understanding, and I might add the amount of money that's available, good facility managers, because that has always been another problem in the industry where that sort of level of money hasn't been available. So it's starting to come into this entity.
No, I think you're right. I think that the intersection is that buildings that are both very efficient, very good environment quality, what they probably have in common is really good management.
Exactly.
And a building that doesn't have good management, you probably choose one or the other.
Yes.
But if you want to get both, it's hard to do it without really good management. Sure. You can give a management saying that it's really cold and really hot, and it's still very energy efficient.
But again, as we saw in the base situation, you'll never be satisfied with it. I forgot to mention that in that curve, there's a 5%, and the 5%, even when everything is 100% fine, your 22.5 degrees or whatever it is, at that point, your air velocity is right, your humidity is right, your clothing is just the average and everything. You'll still get 5% of any group not satisfied. That's the human element.
I have a question. Do you have the linking from your presentation and assessment do you have a data that correlates those type performing within height-wise and what type of systems that they're using?
That's quite interesting, isn't it? Unfortunately, we don't. We don't collect that data as part of the maintenance ratings.
That's been a problem.
You have asked for it previously.
So what we ended up doing is doing the separate energy analysis now. So that's just doing both pieces of the family. That we can do different combinations.
Any other questions?
Same sort of issue. You know much about the grading those big bottom and
I suspect it's primarily A grade. I don't know.
also be a driver on it.
Yes, I suspect that they're primarily A grade and premium. I haven't done the data analysis on that side of the totally clear it, but I strongly suspect that that's the case. One of the things that we're starting to collect in our data set is PCA grading, so we'll be able to do that analysis very probably within a year.
The building we're in, very much
Among many.
whether
Unfortunately, I don't. We don't go to the maintenance rating. We don't go to the level of collecting what kind of system it is, the sizing of it. I would love to be able to collect that data and be able to do data analysis, but we don't have it.
Even at the survey we have analysis in my head on quite a lot of data. That is creating because obviously accelerating over time, never not as actually performing as you'd like it to.
where down.
You're looking at individual I'm looking at the capacity of the buildings. That's one of the things. Apart from the knowledge that I'm talking about, the other factor that contributing towards this assessment oversight bottom.
So I think that's a really important aspect. There's a case study in Equilibrium, not this last issue, but the issue before, maybe actually not even the issue before that, around 170 Pacific Highway, which is just around the corner here. And they achieved 5.5-star neighbours performance. And I know PC Thomas has done some work in the preliminary stages of, or the late design of that building to review their chilled water, their chilled water sizing, and recommended that they downsize it significantly, which they did do and implement. And as a result of them having a star rating, I think they're aiming for 5 and they did 5.5. Fantastic.
One of the biggest challenges redundancy without understanding. One of the biggest challenges would be to be a great requirements you have to redundancy. But then at DSC, those things get manual out. And then that's where I suppose how we can on that purposes. Yeah, the best achieve everything. But then at the same time it allows down make sure that it's not oversizing, but at the same time right redundancy. Then kind of but basis, but the design question how do we have situations that it's required for evaluating and the result.
It is a challenge, and the way I think the conventional way of overcoming that challenge is to have a number of chillers instead of sizing one big chiller for it. You have a couple of chillers so that you can run one stage on them, and that's where you get the value engineering out.
Yes, that's correct.
We drop And instead, somehow, when you get there's a cost of ownership, and PCA brings to that, which relates to the risk of assets in the market space. I mean, city vacancy rate is not the same. Yeah, I think that is a really, really useful tool for measuring energy efficiency. We've got our indoor environment rating, which also allows us to effectively measure the indoor environment quality. I think that these ratings are fantastic when they're used in addition to other tools. So you're not just looking at energy efficiency and environmental information, but you are looking at things like the PCA grading and making sure they do meet those standards. Of course, you've got building code and the like as well.
Yeah, maybe I can add to that because neighbor is the operational benchmarking, but when we are targeting, like say, a building is trying to target the neighbors, I think there's a process that guides the building toward that, the independent design review process, which is really a beneficial risk assessment analysis to actually identify if you are oversighting, like the thing that picking up, I think is the idea on that project, picking up the risk that may affect the building. And lots of these things probably not just the neighbors would be the result of it, but in order to get to that, we also need to identify what is happening, I think. But and other side is also trying to provide additional guidance and events like this to go with among the consultants and energy simulators to actually do the right way of doing stuff. Because for example, like we are doing the neighbors independent commitment agreement modeling, which is to be reviewed by IDR. But the way that we are trying to represent the actual building performance, because software is really idealistic, and then how we put on something to actually say our fan has minimum turn-down of percent instead of someone just put it on the own zero minimum turn-down. This is not possible, for example. And another thing in IBPSA is because Digital Math is also the education committee chair, we are going to have the energy modeling club, so we can actually have everyone bring a computer, look at the way that we do energy model, and so everyone actually doing the right and doing the right way of modeling whatever. So, anything else? Thank you for the great forum and the great collaborations between our audience, and thank you so much for our fabulous speakers. It's been really good, and I'm happy to have this conversation. Feel free to stay and have a chat, and if you still have some food,